before I was...
Well, you gotta tell me. We gotta, like, you know... I gotta be waiting for it. I gotta be ready for it. I can't just, you know... I can't read minds, bro. Sorry.
What's up, guys? It is Corbin Stuckey of Pixel Talk here. I'm joined by Steven yet again. It's probably going to be a reoccurring thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, all right. Let us know what you think in the comments below. So tonight we are reviewing Halloween. We're getting a head start on reviewing all the Halloween movies because the newest Halloween is coming out in October. We're really excited about that, and we decided that we were going to go ahead and review the Halloween series and any other slasher films that we deem awesome, or maybe not awesome, or just we want to review.
Just classic slasher
Pretty
films
much.
for the month of October is, I think, going to be our theme.
Yeah, I'm super excited, and we're starting with Halloween. There's so much I want to talk about with this movie. Actually, I have a friend who I went to school with who actually recently just watched the film, maybe about like a week ago. He had some things to say, like, he said that it was kind of boring and stuff. I wanted to kind of give our thoughts on it because he's right and he's not. I don't know. It's an old movie. I wouldn't say that it's really boring. If you know the history behind the making of this film, there's actually a lot to appreciate. Mm-hmm. This film was made in 1978 by John Carpenter. He wrote it with his girlfriend at the time, Deborah Hill. And this was a really low-budget film.
It was, I believe, off the top of my head, I could be wrong, but I believe it was budgeted around $300,000. The props and things like that were relatively cheap. Not a whole lot of money went into the production itself. And it also suffers from the typical issue that a lot of slasher movies of that time had, where it really hasn't aged very well. I mean, it's still regarded as a classic by all respects, but it's just... You know, a lot of the things that the movie does are seen as kind of cliche nowadays. The special effects aren't very good. But, I mean, that's just... You have to understand, like, from that time period, it was really, you know, kind of state-of-the-art. And I think it was, you know, at the time, it was a lot of people that saw it back in the 70s thought it was a really scary film. But nowadays, seeing it, it's a silly film. But back in the day, you know, this was legitimately a scary thing to be seeing. Especially, you know, like some of the scenes where Myers is stalking the protagonist and her friends and... kind of scenes like that. It's got a couple of those scenes that are kind of just creepy. There's only really one or two jump scares, but a lot of them are kind of just, you know, deliberately framed and deliberately set up to put the viewer on edge a little bit.
That's why I really like this film a lot as well, because it's got a couple jump scares, but it isn't that kind of film. It's actually a film. And when I see this, I think of myself as a filmmaker, and I think of what John Carpenter must have been going through as he was making this, because... Yes, he did have a limited budget, but you could tell that they were all having such a great time making this because this is kind of a slasher film. Going back to what you were saying about like people enjoying this and being scared at the time, there's actually like footage online on YouTube where people, I don't know how they did this, especially during that time period, but somebody like filmed like audience reactions to the film. The part specifically where like Michael Myers like comes back up. And there's actual like reactions from the audience, like people are like scared and screaming in the theater. So I think like it's really hard to like kind of pinpoint how to enjoy this movie or the right way. It's more of a theater experience, I want to say.
Yeah.
Or the kind of movie that you would watch if you were with a group of friends and it's that time of year, like Halloween.
And it is also kind of difficult to appreciate just because a lot of those kind of movies have, you know, dozens in some cases of sequels. So you really know that you know, whoever the bad guy is in the movie is more or less, you might think he's dead, but he's not dead. Like in the end of Halloween, you know, he goes to look over the railing to see if the body's there and the body's gone. And I don't mean to spoil it, but I mean,
yeah,
I'm not really spoiling anything because anyone that can read the internet knows that there's, you know, more than one Halloween movie. It says box set right here, so
I should probably
obviously there's more than one.
I should probably also mention how we're going to handle this review. We are reviewing the other Halloween movies, but how we're going to handle this review specifically is we are going to review this film without any association with the sequels whatsoever. We're going to act like the sequels have not happened yet. And we're just going to review everything within the limits of the film itself. itself. So basically, we're not going to refer to anything that happened in the sequels. We're not going to refer to what we know about Michael Myers and any potential relatives that he has. We're going to review this as a film itself. And I think that's, appropriate, because there's some things that I like in this film, and there's some things that just kind of don't make sense, but it's still a really good film. And like I said, it's just, I love it, actually. It's really nice to admire. If you're a filmmaker and you watch this, there's so many things that you could see, because this is kind of like, it wasn't John Carpenter's first film, but this was like kind of like his first film where he received not a big budget, but a significant amount of money. Like $300,000 is still big, but not in terms of movies. It was very...
I mean, especially for its time, back in the 70s, that was more money than it is today. But still, being a lot of his movies, especially the early ones, were low-budget affairs. But this one, if you have seen a couple of John Carpenter movies, you can see it's got a little bit more in terms of production value, but it's still, you can tell it's very low budget, especially with like things like the set and some of the props. But
so basically what this film is about is Michael Myers killed his sister when he was a child. And many years later, on the Halloween of 1978, he escapes this insane asylum or hospital or whatever, and he goes back to the town where this murder took place. And he, for some reason, is stalking these three girls, these babysitters, pretty much. That was the idea that they were going for when they were writing the script, is they wanted to write a script where there was a serial killer, he was stalking babysitters, and that's essentially what this film is about. Like I said, we're not really going to talk about why he's doing it in the sequels or why you find out. We're going to talk within, because John Carpenter didn't know what was going to happen in the sequels when he was making this film.
So we are aware of why. It's just we're not going to speak about it specific to this movie. But the reason that he's stalking the girls is never explained throughout the course of the film, which, if you've never seen them, especially if you were viewing it back in the 1970s, would probably be a little bit unusual. Just, why is he singled out this group of people out of an entire community? And he just kind of follows them around. He stalks them. They kind of don't really think much of it, especially in the beginning. They're like, who's this creepy guy who's driving around? Oh, well, let's go on with our lives. But that's, never really explained throughout the entirety of the movie why in particular he's chosen these people.
Giving the film the benefit of the doubt, you could just say that he is just a psychopath, and he's just randomly targeted these three girls, pretty much. It's, like I said, it's not really explained, but if you want to bring more depth into it, he's just a serial killer. And it's, for what it is, it's actually kind of creepy as well, because you see him just going about this little small town, these neighborhoods, and you see him watching these girls, and sometimes they're aware, sometimes they're not aware, they're just walking with each other, and you see him like in the corner or just watching them. And that's actually kind of what builds this movie for me, is just him watching them and them not really being aware. It really builds like the audience's perspective on this film.
It's very tension driven. This was one of the pioneers of the the bad guys in the background, but you don't notice him, and then as soon as you turn around, he's gone. Like that kind of thing, where it's more so suspense, because the actual killing, for the most part, with the exception of the first one, really doesn't happen until the last quarter of the movie or so. So up until that point, it's basically just building tension, which is fine, and that's not a complaint as much as it's an observation. But it is very tension driven, and this being one of the pioneers of that kind of filmmaking style really was groundbreaking at the time, and really kind of was creepy to people that were seeing it for the first time back when it came out.
Adding on to that, this is actually one of the first slasher films that really utilized a slasher being like this movie that could be made with not a significant amount of money, but making a huge return. After this, obviously there was a lot of films that came out, specifically Friday the 13th that came out after this film. And going into a little bit of spoilers for Friday the 13th, obviously these aren't really spoilers because, you know this if you're like a horror fanatic. Jason Voorhees isn't in the first Friday the 13th. He's not the main killer. He was added on into the second film, and the reason why they did that was because the makers of Friday the 13th saw Halloween, and they understood from that movie that what really made Halloween was Michael Myers was essentially an icon. He was a face that was on the cover of the poster. So they realized this and decided to add a masked killer to Friday the 13th. And I think that's one of the takeaways from Halloween as well, is because it pretty much inspired all of the slasher films after that point, because it really established the main things that a slasher film has. Kids in high school who are having sex, doing drugs, and, the last girl who survives. So it was the main reason why this film is just so regarded is that it is the film that started it all. So that's the main reason why we have all these horror movie slasher critiques happening. So,
and it is an enjoyable movie. It's regarded as a classic for sure, and it's one of John Carpenter's best in my opinion. It's the problem with it is just the fact that the age and the fact that special effects that we take for granted today,
it's
weren't
very
really there
dated.
at the time. It's super dated.
The first scene I was talking to you about, the first scene where Michael, I love that first scene though, where it's a first person perspective, and actually what also makes this movie stand out is this is one of the first movies that used a glide cam, so they were able to move the camera and do these really smooth shots as well. So that's why the first person perspectives look really good. But the one part that I really don't like about that scene is when the parents find Michael after he's killed his sister, and the parents just stand there.
He made a big deal out of this while we were watching.
The mom puts her hands in her pockets.
Michael, why did you kill this person?
Oh,
well, I didn't know that killed people. Michael, very llamas with hats kind of feel.
And I stabbed him 37 times in the chest.
Carl, that kills people.
Oh,
Carl.
Wow! I didn't know that.
How could you not know that?
Yeah, I'm in the wrong here.
it's just it's very almost stage play oriented, kind of.
I can see
Where you could see this happening on it. I don't know. You could. It's just so hard to explain. It's kind of awkward. The parents don't say anything. They're
Yeah.
why do you have a knife? Why do you have a mask? Why is there blood on you?
Not the appropriate reaction if you found out that your 6-year-old son had just
Michael?
murdered somebody.
So,
and then it's set up just kind of to build suspense, kind of, because it's just this shot where the camera just slowly backs up.
you could tell whoever was a DP on this, I'm not entirely sure. It was such a closed crew because of the amount of money that was put into it. Even John Carpenter is the one who did the score. Not only did he direct it, not only did he write it, he did the score, he did the music. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know who did the DP work, but I wouldn't be surprised if John Carpenter did it himself.
Him or Deborah Hill.
But the guy was obviously really pretentious enough to just let's just do a shot where the camera rises.
Yeah.
And are the actors going to do anything? No.
They're just gonna stand there.
It's just for the shot. Okay. I'm sure people 40 years from now won't be critiquing this, but
yeah, one day Pixel Talk is gonna do a video on this. We gotta make sure we have this stuff nailed down.
So there's stuff like that throughout this movie where it's very I want to say flattering, but if you are looking at this from a literal perspective, where you're critiquing this, there's a lot of cliche stuff that happens. For example, I noticed this the last time we watched the film, and this is probably the third or fourth time I've watched the first Halloween film. So Michael Myers is driving around this city and following these girls, right? So he's been following them for about a day now. Say 5 or 6 hours. They went to school. They're out of school. So it's been half a day, maybe a quarter a day or something like that. Just it's been that amount of hours. So they stop by the shop where he apparently has robbed the store of the Halloween mask, rope, and knives, and the police are there. The problem that I have with this is that he already has his mask in the morning before she goes to school. So did the police just not respond fast enough to this crime?
I mean, we only ever see really one police officer for the entirety of the movie, and it is just a kind of a weird thing, and to just see that this is something that probably happened an hour or two ago, and the alarm's still going off, and there are just people standing around like they just watched it happen.
Exactly.
And then to make it all even worse, you watch as Michael drives by. the scene where
Like-
it happened in front of the sheriff.
Yeah, and Michael is right behind them.
Yep.
Like, so it's like, it's something that I caught for the first time after watching this movie so many times. It's like, that doesn't really add up. And I guess it's like one of those minor plot holes, you could say.
Yeah.
And if the movie, this is one of those things where I realize that this is kind of like a low budget film.
Yeah.
But it's a really good low budget film. One could say that it's almost indie, I want to say, because they received they received their money as like a loan as from an investor after they made a film at a film festival. So this is kind of an indie film that has gained such a following that it's more of a mainstream film now.
Yeah, and especially with the amount of sequels that went on to be made because of this, and the fact that we're even still talking about it today, and the fact that it's still seen as a classic slasher movie from the 1970s, and it still has plenty of rewatch value even way on into the 2000s.
Like I was telling you, this is the Paranormal Activity of the 70s. Not necessarily the plot, but the film itself and the production of it. Like this was made on such a low budget, yet it made such a significant amount of money.
Yep. Changed a genre too.
Yeah.
This was really the first slasher movie that kind of came out and really defined the genre to become what it has today. And I think it's perfectly fair to compare it to like Paranormal Activity, taking low budget things that hadn't really been done before and turning them into these massive genres unto themselves.
One thing I also wanted to talk about was the girls in this. Like I said, John Carpenter and his girlfriend at the time, Deborah Hill, wrote the script, and I feel like it's a good balance because it's kind of cliche how these girls are talking about like dating boys and stuff, but at the same time it's done well to the extent where it's kind of in the middle, where they're talking about boys and they're both smoking, so it's not like the different spectrums where they're really preppy or they're tomboys. It meets just in the middle, and I think it's just because like they both wrote the script and they obviously both are separate genders, so they understand how sometimes girls, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, I think it worked well because they both wrote the script, and it was still entertaining to watch these characters.
Yeah, and it is kind of fun watching them interact with each other. The whole high school dynamic, I think, is pretty well done in this movie. They're all friends, Laurie's kind of the nerdy girl that's struggling to find a date to the dance that, she doesn't really want to go to, and her friends are kind of pressuring her. So it's a typical high school dynamic you'll see in a lot of these kind of films, which I think was really well done, especially since Jamie Lee Curtis, who played Laurie in the movie, was 19 at the time, so she was very young. This is, I think, the movie that really got her her to become a known name
For sure.
But I think the idea to have actors that were relatively young at the time, still in their teenage years, also kind of helped with the whole high school dynamic to make it more believable. And I thought that was really well done. It has again become cliched, especially to see all these movies about high schoolers.
Like totally.
Yeah,
like one girl saying totally. Like my mom
she said totally. Like every couple minutes.
My mom said that when she was a kid, she said totally a lot, and she said that she watched Halloween. So I'm seeing a correlation here. So
that's where she got it.
That's where she got it from. So it's just like it's cliche, but it's a good kind of cliche where you like are watching this and you understand that it's a film from like this time period.
And it wasn't cliche at the time. Like, I mean, when this came out, these were all new and interesting
like
ideas.
Hip things. Like, we gotta write this because this is what the kids just like. Writing YOLO like in a script. Yeah.
Which I feel like, when you watch movies like this from this time period, you really do have to respect the fact that these were groundbreaking at the time they came out. And you can't, I feel it kind of bad, now that you and I kind of view these in a more, critical eye. But you really got to appreciate them for what they are and what they were when they came out and what they were supposed to be and how they, aged and things like that. And you can't really just critique it on faults like, that was bad directing.
Yeah.
It's framed poorly.
Yeah, you can critique a film and, realize that there are some parts that are dated and maybe some parts that don't work, but you can still
you have
also
to be fair.
You can still also like it.
Yeah.
I don't dislike this film whatsoever. I think it is a really great film, and for what it did for the genre, I'm very happy that this became a huge hit, because this could have been just like another one of those horror films that came out and been put under the carpet or under the rug, whatever the saying. What's the saying? Under
Swept
the rug?
under the rug.
There we go. I'm an idiot. But
That's
no,
why I'm here.
thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, no, I'm super happy that it has gained this following, and we are getting a sequel soon. And one of the things that I really like about the first one, and I'm so glad that they brought him back for other like sequels, is Donald Pleasance as Dr. Sam Loomis. I love his performance in this. Like because he really, it's a great performance, and he's there to give the audience an understanding of what we're dealing with.
Yes.
Like without his dialogue, we would kind of be all left like
Without him in the film, Michael is just another, psychopath that's out there to kill people.
Yeah.
Loomis kind of gives him a bit of an almost inhuman kind of twinge because
like he explains that he's evil.
Yeah, he explains that he's evil. There's one line in particular where they enter the house and he's like, "Oh, no man could have done that," and he turns to the sheriff. He's like, "He's no man."
Right.
And he refers to him at the very beginning when they're driving towards the hospital. He refers to him as it. He refers to him as having the devil's eyes. He really kind of dehumanizes him in a very chilling way, which I think is very well done. And his character alone is, he's believable, kind of an almost everyman type person who's, he's out there to try and help people, protect the community from this guy. But at the same time, he does add a scare factor to it because he kind of is helping to personify, in some sense, the evil that Michael Myers is. And I think that makes it, all the more creepy in that aspect.
He's definitely like one of the portions that I love about this. If you're like one of those viewers that really don't like the other characters in this film, you're definitely going to like really appreciate Loomis in this, because I love this character.
He's easy to root for.
Yeah, and the one scene in the film where like he's, the kids are going up to the house and he doesn't want the kids to go inside the house because obviously it's the Myers house and it's very dangerous, and he's like, "Get your ass off that porch!" Like, and also like it's little things like that where you realize that this isn't just some guy that is here to be like, this thing is evil. Like, he's a person. He's got like a personality. He is a doctor as well. The one thing that I do want to talk about, and I understand we've talked about this is later explained in the other films. I'm not even sure. We're gonna have to rewatch them because I don't even know if they go like really into depth. But the film itself, the film that we're talking about, it never explains in 1978 why Michael Myers is able to survive being stabbed by knives and coat hangers and gunshots. It's never explained. Like, I understand that he's explaining that this is no man, this is some psychopath, but why though? Why is he able to sustain this amount of damage? It's
Aliens.
Never aliens.
It's aliens.
It's not actually aliens.
It's not aliens, but
like it's just it's never explained, and that's one of the critiques that I have about this film. Is that maybe they were, honestly, I don't even think they were planning on making a sequel.
I don't know if they were planning a sequel, but they did leave it open-ended for a sequel to happen if there was going to be one, which obviously it was. But at the time they came out, I think they just kind of wanted to leave it open-ended, not only to leave it a potential for a sequel, but also to kind of add like what happens if we didn't get him? What's going to happen next? Which also kind of makes it a little bit creepier, just even if it is just a standalone.
I think they expected us to really buy into the boogeyman persona. I guess they really wanted us to like get invested in that plot line, but I don't really view it as that direct. I view it as more of just like a symbolism kind of thing. It's just it works, but at the same time it doesn't, because it's a little kid's imagination, but with everything that we have on the character within the film's rank, it just doesn't really make sense. All I know is that this is just a psychopath who was involved with a murder as he was a child. That doesn't make you like invincible. Yeah. Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm glad that there are sequels. We're going to get into that later with the sequels, because we all know how horror movie sequels go. They're just so good.
They're always better than the original.
They're always better than the original.
My only real complaint about this movie is towards the end where he's fighting with Laurie. there's a face reveal. Like she pulls the mask off.
Yeah.
And I really wish that wasn't there because, you know, he talks about Michael as if he's inhuman. He talks about Michael as if he's just this evil entity. And I feel like, you know, kind of putting a human face on that in a way detracts from him as a villain because it kind of gives a sense that, you know, he is still human as opposed to just this unstoppable force that just wants to kill everything. Maybe this is just me nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking, but I feel like it would have been better if they had not had the face reveal towards the end.
I agree with you. I felt like the reason why they had that was so they had more of a justified reason for Loomis to shoot him, you know, because he sees him, because he's basically like...
Not that he's, you know, trying to kill
Laurie.
Like,
it's already justified, but I feel like as they were writing the script, they had to justify it even more because he's
Maybe.
been. I totally agree with what you're saying. It kind of takes away from because we haven't seen his face throughout the entire film, and
a lot of these kind of movies they try deliberately to keep you from seeing the faces of the killers. Like, I mean, you see that in, you know, Friday the 13th,
and
see that
even like when A Stranger Calls, the recent one from like mid 2000s tries to do that just a little bit too much, where I'm pretty sure the shadows on his face are digitally added so you don't see his face.
Even Halo did it, like, you know.
Master Chief. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I don't know why they made a decision. Like I said, I guess to justify it a little bit more, but I would have preferred it a little bit more if they would have just kind of left it to the audience's imagination as to what this guy actually looks like. But yeah, this is a very interesting film. I love watching it. I maybe watch it like every once a year. I would understand, like I was saying in the beginning, like my friend who is not really familiar with the Halloween franchise. I would understand like why an average viewer wouldn't really like this film per se, because number one, it is dated. I guess if I were to tell someone about Halloween, I would have to go into obviously like my film antics and be like, all right, so this is the information, this is the amount of money they received, this is influential because, and it really is kind of that movie where you have to explain to someone the background of the making of this essentially as to why this is important. Someone might watch this and think it is the most cliche thing ever, which it kind of is in its own right. But at the same time, it is enjoyable because, especially if you're watching it during, you know, the holiday, Halloween.
Which, you know, it was a good enough movie to get a holiday named after it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I like this film. I really do.
And it was cliche before there was cliche.
Yeah.
And you really do have to respect it for what it is. It is a good film. I do enjoy the movie. But it is dated, but you really can't let that detract from the fact that it is an enjoyable film, and you know, this could have gone like either two ways. Like either this could have been like really, really crappy, like Troll 2, or just
nothing
an instant
classic
to be compared to Trolls 2.
And I'm glad that it's a classic because it's a really well made film, and this has inspired a whole lot of filmmakers. I actually knew a kid from Full Sail who made a Halloween short. So this is a film that if you are a filmmaker and you want to watch a film to relate to, that maybe that first scary movie that you ever made, this is like the kind of film that you would watch and as a filmmaker you admire. So yeah, that's kind of like my real thoughts on Halloween for sure. Did you have anything like a closing thing or?
Not really. I mean, it's a good movie for the month of October, which is, you know, why we saw it in September. But
look, if Walmart can sell Halloween items 2 months before the actual holiday, we can review Halloween in September.
I think they're getting ready to put up Christmas stuff, so we can do whatever we want. This is America,
pretty much. So yeah, guys, I guess that's our review on Halloween. We are really looking forward to reviewing this entire series. We are also going to try and review other Halloween / slasher films within the month of October. Mm-hmm. So if you guys have any suggestions on what we should review next while we're reviewing the Halloween series, comment down below. We will take a look at your suggestions and see what we can do. Movies are not really hard to come by nowadays. You can rent them on
especially
Xbox or PlayStation.
You pretty much own every movie that's been made.
Yeah.
So
like I'm actually I'm excited to see what suggestions we get, because I know a lot of people who are subscribed to the channel are also like Halloween fanatics and into scary movies. I love them as well. So
we both love scary movies,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited to review all these old slasher movies. I'm super excited.
I can't wait. Comment down below what you thought of Halloween. Comment down below what you want us to review next. Like this video, share it, and please subscribe to Pixel Talk if you haven't yet for more movie reviews. And yeah, I am Corbin Stuckey,
I'm Steven Van Ostenbridge.
and this is Pixel Talk. I'm an idiot.